Now, how can we create these journal templates and journal batches in Microsoft Dynamics NAV? Let's have a look. So I will go to the journal templates. And here we have to pay attention, of course, because you have journal templates on all different application areas like fixed assets, insurance, and so on. And of course, I want to go to the general journal templates. So there you go. And these are the journal templates, the general journal templates that our demo company is using. And you recognize templates such as the purchases and the sales journals. But you also see some other types. So let's have a look how we can create these templates. What does these fields mean? How can we use them? And so on. So we start quite obviously with a name and a description. And then there's the type. Now, like I just said, there are commonly used types such as sales, purchases, and probably also general. But you can also see that we have quite some specific types available. So first of all, general means, of course, general journals that you can use in the general ledger application area. And so a bookkeeper typically uses general journals to post corrections, year-end entries, and so on. Then there's sales and purchase, which speaks for itself, I think. And then we have cash receipts and payments journal. Now, the cash receipt journal is typically used to post customer payments, while we use the payments journal to post payments to vendors. So these are two specific types, in most of the cases based on one or more bank accounts that we have set up in the system, that again you will use in the financial, so in the bank management application area. You can learn more on these, how to use these journals in Finance Essentials in Microsoft Dynamics NAV. But if you want to set up a cash receipt journal, as you can see here, just select the correct type. Then we have assets. So the first line that we're looking at is a fixed asset journal, so a fixed asset GL journal, which means that you can post from the fixed asset application area, but with GL integration. Then there's intercompany. If you use the intercompany application area, you can set up an intercompany general journal. And finally, we also have jobs. So, and this is of course used in the job application area. So the type is very important because it will define where, so in which application area we will have the journal available. Then there is recurring. Now, recurring means periodic. So it's a journal, typically a general journal that we can use to process recurring entries, like a depreciation or an accrual or the monthly rent that you will have to pay, salaries, and so on. Then there's the balancing account type and the balancing account number. So each posting has an account and the balancing account. So the account could be the debit account, then the balancing account is of course the credit account, or the other way around. Now, in most of the cases, as you can see here, we don't assign a balancing account up front, because we would like to give the user the flexibility to choose the balancing account and the account manually, because in most of the cases we don't know in advance what the balancing account will be. And again, that's why for all these lines you will see here that the balancing account number field is blank. However, there's one specific scenario in which we can specify the balancing account account number in advance, and that's for cash receipts and payment journals. Now, you could do this here on the journal template level, but you will see that our demo company has done this on the batch level. So if I already go to the batches, just to show you the concept, you see here indeed that this template has 3 batches, and that for 2 of these batches, the balancing account number is already assigned. So this cash receipt journal, for example, is linked to the Worldwide Bank operating, and the fixed balancing account is that specific bank account you see, which means that whatever I post in this cash receipt journal, it will be balanced to the Worldwide Bank operating bank. Okay, so that's one situation, in most of the cases the only situation in which you will assign a fixed balancing account. Then we have number series and posting number series. Now, the fact that we can assign 2 different number series is pointing at a concept that we can use in NAV, namely the one of a temporary number series and the one of posting number series. So this means that we can set up the system in a way that the number that is assigned when creating a journal line is different from the one that the system will use when posting. In this case, you can see we have 2 fields, which means a total of 4 combinations, and they all have their specific effect. So for example, if you only assign a number series and no posting number series, the number that is assigned when creating the journal line is also the number that is used when posting the journal line. If you have it the other way around, if you would say, okay, I don't have a number series, but I do have a posting number series, then this means that when creating a journal line, you will have to enter manually the document number field. But that number that you have entered manually will be replaced by a number coming from the posting number series. You see? So that's also possible. You can also have the combination of the 2. So I could say, for example, this is, let's say, let's take another one that makes a little bit more sense. So let's take this one, for example. So this is my number series and this is my posting number series. Now this means that the system will pick a number from this number series when you create a journal line, but will replace it with a number coming from this number series when you post the journal, you see? So this is the concept of different temporary numbers and posting numbers. And then finally, you could also have the situation where both of these fields are blank. This, of course, means that then you will have to enter manually a number when creating the journal line, and that number will also be the number assigned to the posted entries. You see, so we have 4 different options, and they all, like I just said, have their specific result when posting. So let me assign again this one. So very important, could be very important to manage your numbers of the journal. Then we have the source code and the reason code. We just saw these trail codes in the previous module, and you see that journals, as we saw in that module, always carry a source code. Then there's the force document balance field. Now this field will define whether we need balance within the same document number. Let me show you this with a quick example. So if I go to the general journals, and let me take the default batch, and I will first remove the lines that we have here. There we go. And suppose now I'm entering a very simple journal. So I will start with an expense account. I will enter 100, and let's go to a second line. So for example, let's take here the cash account, and this is then minus 100. So a very simple journal, which, very important, is in balance. And my total balance is 0, which means that I can perfectly post this, especially because we have balance in the same document number. But suppose that you would have this situation, then you will see that my 2 journal lines are still in balance, because the first one is 100, the second one minus 100, but now I don't have the balance anymore within the same document number. Now the question if I can post this yes or no is answered by that specific field. If I now try to post, you will see that it will not work, because my document number 2 is out of balance. And again, the reason is, and let me now go back to the journal templates. So the reason for the message I just got is this field, force document balance. So this field will force document balance within the same document number. And so I tried to post 2 lines which were in balance, but within different document numbers, and it didn't work. And again, this is because of this field. If I would remove this field, then you will see that such entries will post, because again there's balance, and now the system doesn't care anymore if the balance is within different document numbers. You see, so that's what this field is doing. Then another field which might be interesting to use is the copy vet setup to journal lines. And let me also demonstrate here what will happen. So again, I will go to general journals. So and let me remove, let me first go to the default batch, there we go. Then I will remove the lines that we just created so I can show you again. And what you will see is that, and let me scroll a little bit to the right, there we go. That's better. If I enter a GL account, so for example my cleaning expense account, you will see now that the system populates values here in the fields like general posting type, business posting group, and so on. Now this is because we have enabled the field copy VET setup to journal lines. And the VET setup is the VET setup of this GL account. Now that's very important because if I post this, so suppose that I enter 100, the system will now calculate VAT on this amount. So this is considered now as the amount including VAT. And when posting, the system will use the VAT rate to calculate the VAT amount and the amount excluding VAT. And will only post the amount excluding VAT to my expense account. Now, if you don't want that, if you want to post the 100 to the expense account, then of course I can remove these values. I can say this is not purchase, but for example this is blank, this is not domestic, this is not miscellaneous, and so on. And now the 100 will be posted to the expense account. However, instead of always having to remove these values manually, you can also set up the journal in a way that it doesn't copy the VAT setup to the journal line. So again, I will go to the templates. There we go, general journal templates. So and again, if I do not want to copy or if I do not want to enable VAT calculation when posting a general journal, it might be better to clear this field, which the system can also do in the underlying batches, and there you go. So now if you retrieve the account, the VAT fields, so the posting groups are not filled anymore, so are not copied anymore from the GL account. And then the last field is allow VAT difference. If you would like to allow the correction of small VAT differences, you can enable this field here. So this is how we can set up the journal templates. Now we also saw the concept of the journal batch. And let's also have a look here. And you already saw that by going to navigate, we can open the journal batches. And if I look for the general journal, you can see that currently Cronus has created two different batches, one for cash entries and one for default entries. Another example that you could use is by user. So I could create a specific batch for myself. I can create a specific batch for my colleague Vincent, for example. And this means that everyone now has his or her specific batch that you can use when posting entries. So for example, suppose that I'm one of the users, I'm Koen, I will go to the general journals, and I've prepared some entries for the general journal. Now the first thing that I will do is use, of course, my specific batch. So I will select my line, click on Edit Journal, and I can enter my lines. So I can enter here an account, and I can enter an amount of 1,000 and so on, balance it against another account. So I've entered my entries, but I don't want to post them yet because I first want to check this with my manager who is coming in tomorrow and so on. And the concept of using different batches is now resulting in the fact that this is not a problem. Because if my colleague Vincent also has prepared some entries and he wants to enter these entries, he will do this in his specific batch. So if I now select Vincent, click on Edit Journal, you will see that this batch is empty. So he is not disturbed by my entries, which I haven't posted yet. And he can just start entering his transactions, his entries, post them, and so on. You see? So this will enable users to work in their specific batches and in that way don't disturb each other. And so everyone can use his or her specific batch. And again, creating these batches, so let me go back one last time to the journal templates. As you could see me doing, is very easy. So the only thing that you will have to do is select the journal for which you want to create a new batch, click on Navigate, go to the batches and enter a new line. And as we saw on the overview slide, most of the fields are inherited from the journal template from which we have created the batch, but you can perfectly change them. I could say that, for example, for Vincent, we don't use this number series, but we use, for example, this number series. You see, so perfectly possible to do this. And so again, so that's the concept of a batch in which we then create the journal entries. Now, by looking at my demonstration, you could tell that creating journal batches is quite easy. And that's something that you can experience now yourself by going to the practice of this lesson.